Yeah. Yeah, I've been meaning to check out your stuff. Was it on Lights Camera Rant? I heard you on.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
was featured on Lights Camera Rant. Gosh, when was that? It's like
Maybe a month ago.
yeah, like probably a month ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was with Lee. It's funny. It was actually it was around this time, Saturday night over here on the East Coast,
Yeah.
and he's in Australia, so it was already like 9 a.m. Sunday for him.
Yeah, that's kind of when I recorded
Yeah.
them the one time. It was very similar. It was night for me and morning for him.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
no, I like Lee a lot. Lee's an awesome dude. So how long have you been podcasting?
I haven't been podcasting long. I've only been doing this since May.
Okay.
Yeah, it's something I started, I guess, right after my fourth year of college. I'm currently in my fifth year of undergrad.
Okay, awesome.
So yeah, so something I started just this past summer, and
Yeah,
just been continuing and kind of seeing where it leads.
yeah.
Like I've been on before. I was featured on Lights Camera Rant. I was featured on the Backlook Cinema podcast, which they do more like reviews of older films. Like the episode I was on, we reviewed Rocky, which I
Okay.
actually, in preparation for Creed 3, in 2023 I'll be going through all 6 Rocky films and then Creeds 1 and 2. But
I should be doing that because I haven't seen any Rocky movie or any
what?
Creed movie. I know. I consider myself a film fan, but it's just one of those that's always missed me.
Yeah, missing out.
Yeah. Especially I hear Creed is great. So.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, the only Rocky movie I haven't seen is Rocky Balboa. That's the one from 2006.
Okay, well, that one sucked, right?
I haven't seen it. So.
Yeah. Okay. I thought I heard it was some people didn't like it. I don't know.
I've only seen 1 through 5. The 4th one was my favorite though. The 4th.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, when you fought Drago.
And we have a guest here.
Hey,
Troublemaker.
Comic Boys.
How's it going, man?
Pretty good. How are you?
Just hanging out. I spend most of my day playing Marvel Snap.
So do I. Is it bad?
Yeah. I also, God, is it Morgan? Is that your first name?
Yeah, Morgan's my first name.
Did you play Marvel Snap?
No. I've the thing is like I've heard about. Okay, please don't cut my mic off. I've heard of like Marvel Snapped, and they've like sponsored like videos. I've seen like I was literally watching some video on YouTube today. It was about like Marvel Snapped, and it was actually, now that I think about it, it was a video from Nerd Out, which is a YouTube channel that does songs. They do like rap songs about like not just Marvel, but also like Star Wars. They'll do like video games, and they're currently doing like their 12 days of Nerd Out, where they're like posting more frequently throughout the month of December. And the video I was watching today was their song for Midnight Suns. Yeah, okay. For the Midnight Suns video game that just came out, and that video was sponsored by Marvel Snapped. So
gotcha.
Yeah, coincidentally, before we joined, I just rewatched Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and then as soon as you send the link, like I had started episode 1 of Miss Marvel, and then you send the link, I'm like, all right, yeah, let's go. Yeah.
Michael, question.
Yes.
What collection level are you on? Marvel Snap.
I'm like 1060, I think, something like that. I know you're much higher than me. And you have way better cards.
Well, not much higher, but slightly higher.
Yeah. Khalil, I also, I don't know if you saw, but I said I was going to watch Avatar 1 today, and I did that as well.
So how can you convince me that one of my least favorite movies should be watched?
Okay, I mean, I feel like I can't talk because I watched that movie yesterday for the first time. Okay.
Well, did you like it, Morgan?
Loved it. Loved it.
Okay.
All right.
So, Khalil, I'm not going to fight you on the first one. Okay, I won't fight you. If you don't like it, it's not for you. That's fine. What I will fight you on is prejudging Avatar 2, because if now, Khalil, take your mind, pretend like you don't know what Avatar is, right? And I tell
I
you,
still don't know what it is. I watched the first one.
okay, all right, okay. Pretend like you've never seen the first one.
Easy
And what if I told you the most expensive sci-fi fantasy epic of the year was coming out, and you were like, I'm not going to see it? I mean, I don't see, like, as somebody that appreciates genre films, I don't see how you can immediately say, I'm not interested in the second one. Like, the most sci-fi genre film.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest. Okay, I have a few problems with this movie, and you tell me. And the biggest thing is it's like too long. It's
Okay,
3 hours, and the fact that I can barely remember watching the first one, even though I know I watched it in theaters, is scary. The fact that I'm gonna have to sit through a 3 hour movie that I can't even remember anything beyond the general plot of the first one. And I don't want
I
to.
Can't remember what I watched last year, so that's an art. I can't relate. I don't remember anything. I don't have a memory.
But like I can remember more of like Endgame or Infinity War or like any other Marvel movie ever that I can. I can remember more of Dune, even though it's closer. But like
I haven't seen it.
Dune's good.
Oh, it's good. It's good.
Heard so much about it, and I haven't seen it.
I don't know. I just don't want to be bored in a theater for 3 hours. If it wasn't
Well,
3 hours, I'd probably watch
it. Okay. But now let me ask you this. The initial reactions, the first reviews are very, very positive. Does that not change your mind? I realize, like, I hate a 3 hour movie too, but if it's a good 3 hour movie.
Yeah. Like, I can't sit through Lord of the Rings.
You can or can't?
I can't. I fell asleep in the third Hobbit. The third Hobbit movie, Battle of the Five Armies, I gave up.
Yeah.
I got like 15 minutes in, I'm like, okay, Martin Freeman and what's his face? Ian McKellen. Props to Ian McKellen for reprising the role of Gandalf. All right. Older Ian McKellen playing younger version of Gandalf, but like I'm like, after 3 films, I can't sit through this dialogue and this just like, are we there yet? Are we there yet? It's like there's an old commercial for Universal Studios Hollywood, and it's like The Simpsons, and it's like they're on the road, and then the kids keep on asking like, "Are we there yet?" And then Homer keeps going, "No, are we there yet? No, are we there yet?" It's like that's how I feel with a lot of films. So to your point, Khalil, like I can see where you're coming from, like with like 3 hour films. Like every time I watch Endgame, it doesn't feel like a 3 hour film. Like, and I saw it in theaters. And I was wearing my Tony Stark hoodie when I watched Tony Stark die. And so it's like, when I saw it in theaters, it didn't feel like 3 hours. But for me, it's not always about the runtime. It's about the pacing. It's like you can have a film, like a film could be like an hour and a half, but if it's like a boring ass film, then it feels like you're sitting there for 3 hours. Like you can have a film like Avengers Endgame that's 3 hours long and have it feel like a regular and you feel like you're in and out in like 2 hours because it's like there's a new like plot development like every 15 minutes. Like you're actually like invested and engaged in where the story is going. But then it's like with my example of like The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings, it's like when a film is just dragging, like even if those films weren't 3 hours long, even if they were like an hour and a half, it's like if the dialogue, if the plot, if I'm not invested in the film, then I'm gonna fall asleep. That I can't wait to get out of there. Honestly, it's like so for me, it's not always the runtime.
Endgame was a very bad example to use because
is it?
That was a movie I felt was 3 hours and I disliked
really?
so. I don't like Endgame. Like in terms of
you have the hottest takes of anyone I've ever met.
Man,
what's the best 3 hour film? Let me ask you that.
Okay, yeah. Let's.
Not gonna go look at what movies are 3 hours long.
The Godfather.
I mean, because Wakanda Forever was up there too. I mean,
yeah.
Is The Godfather 3? Yeah, because I don't think
it's close.
Yeah, because I don't think I watched The Godfather all at once. I might have paused and come back to it.
Ooh, actually, I know the answer is really easy.
Okay, what is it?
Godfather is definitely up there. But I think, at least in terms of easy watches, probably The Green Mile.
Haven't
I
seen it.
haven't seen it.
Heard so much about it, and I haven't seen it.
Or the
RIP
Wolf of
Michael Clark
the
Duncan.
Wolf of Wall Street.
Is
Seen
that
a
3
few-
hours?
That's 3 hours according to IMDb. Yeah.
No. Seen a few scenes from. Yeah, seen a few scenes, and it's funny because there's a YouTuber, Shay Frills Production, and he was doing a video. He was doing like a whole video essay about Shark Tale, and how like that's a movie about like how this one fish like becomes this manipulative, sociopathic like celebrity, and how Martin Scorsese shows up. He plays the pufferfish in that film. Yes, that Martin Scorsese, who directed Taxi Driver and Goodfellas, and like he hasn't acted in anything before or after this film, but it had Scorsese, therefore it was nominated for Best Animated Feature in 2004. Then again, it was 2004. Crash won Best Picture. So
There you go.
it's like, okay, but like he had said in the video how like it's his headcanon that Martin Scorsese's involvement with Shark Tale was his inspiration behind the movie The Wolf of Wall Street, you know, about Jordan Belfort becoming this, you know, kind of rich, egotistical, manipulative, sociopathic liar. So although it is based on a true story, but it was just kind of that parallel that I wasn't thinking about when I saw Shark Tale for the first time at 3. Not to make any of you feel old. Like I feel like every podcast I go on, it's like I'm significantly younger than the person that I'm.
How old are you exactly? I'm not doing the math.
I win that now.
I'm 21. I'll be 22 in January.
Okay.
Damn.
I'm 28.
I still
not a
win.
grandpa.
I still win, but like less so because I'm 19. So.
I mean, is that
Wait,
winning?
you're 19?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
I thought you were at least 32.
Everybody always thinks I'm like at least 25 or 24. Like, I had a kid say he thought I was 30. I'm like, oh god. I mean, when I had the full goatee, maybe. But,
when I'm clean shaven, I don't look young at all.
yeah, because I was clean shaven when
I do look
young.
young. I do look young. I don't look old at all. Oh, so I was recording a solo podcast yesterday, right? And I went down a rabbit hole at the end. I'm gonna probably have to cut some of it out because it's weird and ranty. But like, I was looking at the years films were released, and was having like little mini crises when I realized that Harry Potter was still releasing movies in 2010.
Yeah.
It broke my brain. I don't know why.
I have not seen like any of the Harry Potter films. Like I've seen maybe the first half hour of Sorcerer's Stone because I feel like it showed up. I feel like it was on Disney Channel once. Don't look at me with that tone of voice, Khalil.
I'm not a big Harry Potter fan. I'll say that.
I've seen.
Have you seen it?
I feel like I watched like the first 45 minutes of like Order of the Phoenix. That's the only one I really remember when it came out because it was like I think 2007. So like I remember watching that on like HD DVD. God, I'm old. And yeah, then I remember 2011. That was when Deathly Hallows Part 2 came out because that was the end of the Harry Potter franchise. But I want to say the first film came out like the year I was born, or like it's a franchise that's as old as me. And like I never read the books. I think my mom read a few of the books, but she was in college. But she said how she stopped around like Order of the Phoenix or Half-Blood Prince because then they started doing like human sacrifices and it got really satanic and dark at some point. Like, because I think she still has a copy. I don't know if it's an original copy of Half-Blood Prince, but like I've seen like her old copies of like the Harry Potter books, and I just never really. I'm not gonna read a 500-page book. Okay.
What?
I don't know. Maybe it's just never really been my thing. I mean, Harry Potter never really got into it. I've been to Universal Studios, and I love the Harry Potter ride and all that, but like, it's just never been my thing.
You're one of those people.
I hate magic. That's my thing. Like, I don't like magic. Is that weird?
You literally love the magical wizards with their magical powers. But okay.
Yeah, it's so. I mean, well said. But I mean, aside from that, like. Even like some of my least favorite superheroes are like magicians.
You know, like Doctor Strange.
You know, I've come around on Doctor Strange in recent years, but initially I did not. No, I didn't like the first movie at all.
What?
Yeah.
That's like the shortest Marvel movie too, I think.
Doctor Strange is easily one of Marvel's best movies.
Yeah, I think the first one had like the best visual effects for Phase
It
3.
takes a long time to get going. I feel it.
You know, Phase 3 was the same movie, same phase we got Endgame in, right? Or Infinity War, sorry. Well, I guess Endgame.
I still consider Infinity War the best Avengers film.
You know, for the longest time, I
Yeah,
liked
easily.
Endgame more than Infinity War, and then I rewatched Infinity War recently, and I might be changing my mind.
Yeah,
Good.
I
Okay.
mean, yeah, I think I had mentioned on my podcast once that Infinity War. I think it was actually when I reviewed Avengers Infinity War. I said how Infinity War is one of those films that like each generation has like one or two films that kind of define that time period and that are watched for like generations to come, and how in 20, 30, 40 years, what are the superhero films from our time that our kids and our grandkids are going to be are going to be watching, and or just movies in general. I feel like Avengers Infinity War is just going to be like the way that we look at movies like Casablanca, Citizen Kane, North by Northwest, The Godfather, even my personal favorite movie of all time, The Dark Knight. The way that we view Khalil, like I know you about to roast me or something. I think that the way that we view those movies today is the way that Infinity War is going to be viewed 50 years from now. I think that's just
I don't disagree with that. I think it's hard to tell. I think it's hard to tell
Right.
what, like 100 years from now, how are people going to view the MCU, right? Because it's unlike anything that's ever been done. You can sit down and watch Citizen Kane without any context and be fine. You can't really do that with Infinity War. So I agree, but it's just we might look back on this era of like superhero movies and be like, wow, that was a really dark time in cinema, comparatively to what comes,
Right.
But,
But
like,
then
go ahead.
no, you go ahead. No.
I was gonna say one of these a while ago, these like little panel things. I brought up this idea of this very dark idea of what if Chris Pratt in Jurassic World is something that's considered nostalgia in the future, right? Like how we consider Goldblum like nostalgia now, right? In Jurassic, like when he shows up in Jurassic World. Like that's a real possibility and a very scary one to me.
True. Yeah, no, that's a very real possibility. But I guess what I was trying to say with the whole like Avengers Infinity War being regarded as like one of the greatest films, at the very least, of the 21st century, in my opinion, is that it's kind of like how in the Star Wars franchise. Now, my personal favorite Star Wars movie ever, although I didn't grow up in that time period, is Empire Strikes Back, just because it's so impactful. It's like you weren't expecting the bad guys to win. Like you weren't expecting the Empire to just win. Plus, there's that iconic line, when Darth Vader tells Luke, "I am your father." I can't imagine what it must have been like actually seeing that in theaters back then. And there was no social media, there was no internet back then. So like everyone having to kind of experiencing that in theaters, is something that I'm curious, like as to what that would have been like in 1980, hearing in theaters, "I am your father." And is that kind of akin to how when Infinity War came out, seeing Thanos literally do everything that he said he was going to do. Like he collected all 6 Infinity Stones. He, snapped half of humanity out of existence, and then just sat back and relaxed. Like when I saw that movie the first time, I was just shocked. Like I was wondering, like, did that just happen? You sure? Like, hold on, run that back. Like, I feel like it's that shock value. I think, Infinity War just kind of packs the same punch that Empire Strikes Back did in 1980. And it's like, there's a follow-up story coming. And that's also why I think movies like Return of the Jedi and Avengers Endgame are kind of in the same boat. It's like, we didn't know specifically how everything was going to play out. It's like, but Return of the Jedi, we knew, okay, so of course they're going to rescue Han. Of course, Luke's gonna confront his father, and of course, and of course, well, we didn't know that there would be a second Death Star, and we might not have known like the logistics of how everything was going to happen, but we knew that they were going to, bookend this trilogy, and that our group of protagonists were going to come out on the top in the end. And same goes for Avengers Endgame. We knew that somehow they were going to bring everybody back. Granted, we didn't know that it was going to be in the form of a 3-hour-long film and a time heist, and we didn't know that literally a rat was going to save the day. That's what a lot of people don't realize, is that there's the rat that saved the day, who may or may not have been that same rat that Ant-Man encountered in the first Ant-Man film. Eric Voss on New Rockstars has debunked that headcanon, saying, rats, they don't live that long. But yeah, it's like Avengers Endgame, like it did everything that we wanted it to. Plus, at that time, we already knew that Spider-Man Far From Home was coming. We knew that Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, although we didn't know it was going to be called that, like we knew, like Marvel had already told us about the future projects they had post Endgame, so we know somehow everybody's coming back in Endgame. So,
and because of that, I found Infinity War to be insulting. Actually,
What?
in the moment after, I was like, I mean, like here I am, like supposed to cry over Peter, like begging Tony Stark, saying he doesn't want to go, but I'm like, and here I am, like way too deep down the rabbit hole of like, I know, at the time I was like, oh, Black Panther 2 is coming, more Guardians movies coming. Like there was just like for me, it was like. And I will say again, like having rewatched it recently, I'm able to look at it because now, of course, I know what happens and it's going to turn out okay. I was able to appreciate it a little bit more, but in the moment in the theater, I was like, are we really ending like this? Like, I don't know. I would have appreciated a different cliffhanger.
See,
I guess, yeah.
as the lone defender of this movie, I feel like I need to like.
Are you the lone defender of Infinity War? I don't think so. I think there
No,
are many
here of the three of us, I'm the lone defender saying it's significantly better than Endgame.
I don't. Morgan's kind of agreeing with
Yeah,
that.
no, I agree. Like I said, I remember earlier, I said Infinity War is the best Avengers movie that's come out so far. Like it's better than like, okay, for me, my order, it goes Infinity War, Endgame, The Avengers, Age of Ultron.
Endgame's holding a finger above Age of Ultron for me right now. It's like slightly.
Wait, who's
the difference between Endgame or Infinity War and the Avengers versus Age of Ultron and Endgame is so big. It's kind of crazy. Thinking my own rankings.
Well, yeah.
Wait, Michael, is your favorite Star Wars movie Empire Strikes Back?
It changes all the time, but I will say,
I was gonna say because if we said Attack of the Clones, we have to cancel you. I'm sorry.
Oh no. I will say I have like one from each trilogy that kind of, it's like a horse race. Like, and I always change my mind on them. It's Revenge of the Sith, Empire, and The Last Jedi.
What? Am I the only one who has different favorites of both the old and new, the old and the older trilogy?
I don't know. Morgan, what are you confused about? Which one shocked you?
The
Last Jedi?
Well, yeah. I guess, like, I guess being that I'm Gen Z, and it's like for our generation, like each generation kind of has their own trilogy. Like Gen X, they have the original trilogy. Millennials probably remember the prequels, and then for my generation, like we have episodes like 7, 8, and 9. For me, like Empire Strikes Back will always be my favorite Star Wars movie. I think nothing will ever compare to that film, especially what they were able to accomplish with they were limited by the technology of their time, and what they were still able to accomplish with 1980. Everything was physical. So I think just like the sheer ingenuity. Check out the documentary Empire of Dreams, which is on Disney Plus. Like you see like all the work that went into the original trilogy, and then the work that was still ongoing at the time with the prequels. So, yeah, I guess The Last Jedi, I had seen it in theaters. I didn't see it opening night. I had heard that it was getting kind of bad reviews. I think it's a film that I feel like is kind of overhated. I think, and here's why, because I don't know. I think as you watch the film, it's kind of like how in Empire Strikes Back you have the Battle of Hoth, and then our main group of protagonists, they survive, and everyone like escapes, and then Luke doesn't regroup with and then Luke doesn't regroup with everybody else. Whereas in Last Jedi, it's like, yeah, sure, they spend a lot of time just like getting to safety. And I think that Finn was really just a background character in episode 7. Like, he was underused. He was like, okay, so he, after his first mission, he defects and wants to, he saves Poe Dameron, but he's really a deserter. He wants to just run. He doesn't defect to the Resistance. And then and then he finds Rey, and then he's just kind of running behind Rey the whole time. And then he eventually admits to Rey that he lied to her, and and then he ends up like injured in the end of the film. So I feel like he was kind of underutilized. So I like how they used Finn more in The Last Jedi, and I think it was like, for me, like how perfect that I saw this movie. It was around this time. I was a senior in high school, and that for me it was the scene where Luke is with Force Ghost Yoda, and Luke says how like it's time for the Jedi to end. Even at the height of their power, they still failed to stop Anakin from becoming Darth Vader and all, and how Yoda explains how failure is the greatest teacher. So really that was like that one line that I've applied like to myself in real life. I feel like that's just that's a very real line. That's just one of those times where like the lines between like a movie and real life are kind of blurred, I think, for me. And that's why, again, I think that all of us need to go back and rewatch The Last Jedi, rewatch those scenes with Luke and Rey, and Luke saying how the Jedi don't own the Force, and for the Jedi to say that they own the Force, like, that is vanity, and how everything is in balance, and how like the scene where Rey is meditating, she says, "I see light, I see dark, I see life, death, which brings new life," and how I'm kind of geeking out, but you see, I'm an engineer, and we have this principle called the law of conservation of energy. It says that energy is neither created nor destroyed; it is only transmitted from one form to another. So I feel like there's a lot of like practical applications to that fictional knowledge of the Force and midi-chlorians. So Last Jedi, it's a film for, I guess, it's an unusual Star Wars film. It's not like all the others. There's not some big battle. There's not some big cliffhanger. And yeah, they did kind of screw up Snoke, I'll admit. But yeah, I think Last Jedi is a film that we all need to rewatch. And if I had to pick one from each trilogy, for me, original trilogy, Empire Strikes Back. Prequel trilogy, Phantom Menace, because that's the one that I dislike the least. Michael, yeah, I know. I can see you about to say something. Just hear me out. And then from the sequel trilogy, I mean, despite my dissertation on The Last Jedi, I think as a film, The Force Awakens holds up better just because it was impactful when it came out in 2015. It's like, it's like we're continuing the story post episode 6. But yeah, my choosings would be Empire, Phantom Menace, Force Awakens.
I think they're too long without a hot take, so I'm gonna throw my all-time favorite Star Wars movie from all the trilogies is
Rise of Skywalker.
A New Hope. No,
I've only seen Rise of Skywalker once.
Overrated.
What? I kind of agree, and that's why I say I go back and forth, because I think there are long stretches of Empire that are kind of boring.
I guess.
Now, I love Star Wars, so it's hard for me to hate on anything Star Wars, because Star Wars is all still amazing. But like, I don't know. There's something about A New Hope. It just so, and one of my biggest factors for deciding which movie I like the most is how rewatchable it is. And I think A New Hope, just like Endgame, are two of the single most rewatchable movies I've ever seen.
I don't hate that take at all, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Not as hot as I wanted, but
Here's the interesting thing though, because I think there's some parallels in Empire and The Last Jedi, in that I feel like both have really like some of the greatest moments in Star Wars, but also moments that are less desirable as well, in my opinion.
No, you're right. You're right. Yeah, I only saw The Rise of Skywalker one time, and I know because I saw it January of 2020, right before the pandemic happened.
Mm.
Like it was the last movie I saw before the world shut down. And I'd have to rewatch it because I remember there was like the final order and Palpatine's alive, and I just remember, I just remember like there's a scene where we find out that General Hux is the informant. I'm like, what? Like, this is one of those just like, okay, well, I guess we have to close out the trilogy. So here,
God, it makes me sick to think that's how we've. Here's my pitch, actually, because I could go into a rant about Rise of Skywalker and why it sucks, but what's more positive
It's Star Wars.
is
It can't suck.
here's my opinion, and they should come out with Star Wars X. X being the Roman numeral of 10. We need a final Star Wars episode. Doesn't have to be a trilogy, just one more. Close out the story. Give us Rey. Give us Finn as a Jedi. I don't know who the villain would be. I've tried to think about this guy. I always come back to like a cult of like Sith worshippers or something, but that almost feels too similar to Kylo Ren. But I think that there's still a lot of story to close out, and I think maybe that's 10 years down the line. Maybe it's similar to how Harrison Ford came back for The Force Awakens. Maybe they're old. I don't know what it looks like, but I would love for nothing more for them to close out the Skywalker saga with a much better movie.
Can I repitch this to you in a different way?
Okay, repackage it.
Okay, because I don't love the idea of doing another trilogy movie. Okay, but I agree with all the points you've made. So my pitch, Rey Skywalker or Rey Palpatine, whatever, I don't even know her name anymore. A TV series where she goes through and basically, essentially, the TV show is her like tying all the close ends and closing all like the open kind of ended parts of Star Wars, and like going through, maybe there is like a Sith cult just to take down. She goes and she basically cleans up everything. So you can kind of wrap it up, but not in a movie, but in like more of a show where she goes and does a bunch of one-off things. Because I feel like there isn't enough plot to do one movie and do it justice. I feel like you've so much more ability to do what you want to do and do a more effective job of doing it in a show.
So you're saying a movie's too much, so you'd rather have a TV show, which is longer.
Well, I think you're going to try to shove too much into a movie, which is too short to
I see.
do everything you want to do effectively.
Okay. Yeah, see, I think because I also another point that I meant to hit on, which would be great in closing out this saga, the Force Awakens was Han Solo's send off. The Last Jedi was Luke Skywalker's send off. Rise of Skywalker was Leia's send off. So I think that Episode 10 can also be Lando's send off. I would like to see more Lando as well.
Let's get Lando TV show. I don't care.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, isn't there a Lando TV show coming?
Is there?
I don't know what shows Star Wars shows are coming. Now I'm just kind of like rolling with the punches. Oh, there's a new show. Cool.
I just don't know if it got canceled. It was definitely announced.
Oh no, I know it was announced. At this point though, Star Wars shows exist if they show up on my Disney Plus account. That's how I know that they exist.
You gotta understand that I'm still in school and like I actually have finals next week, so like I haven't. It's like I haven't watched like Andor. I made it to like episode 4, and I just really haven't been able to keep up with it. Plus I really shut up. And I've really been just kind of like doing like a whole I rewatched the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, with the exception of the Incredible Hulk.
Why? Like, why not Incredible Hulk?
That movie, man.
I would like to. I haven't seen it probably since I was a child. I would love to.
Right. Yeah, I don't know, man. It had like Edward Norton. The CGI is, well, I get that it was 2008, but it's a film that just doesn't fit in with the rest of the MCU. And I feel like that's actually the shortest review that I did on my podcast. It was the second episode that I did. I reviewed the first episode was Iron Man, second episode was The Incredible Hulk, and I feel like that episode was like 12 minutes long. I don't know. I feel like the pacing was kind of all over the place, and the third act, the battle between Hulk and Abomination, didn't really feel earned. A lot of us forget that film's even a part of the MCU because we're just so used to seeing Mark Ruffalo. Plus, like all the stuff that happened like behind the scenes with Edward Norton like making his own script, and how like if you go back to like the 2007 San Diego Comic-Con, like there was all this footage, and promotions for Iron Man, and then it's like everyone was excited for Iron Man. No one was really excited for the Incredible Hulk. I mean, especially after Ang Lee's 2003 Giant Brock Lesnar. That's not the name of the film, but I mean, if you watched, Hulk from 2003, I mean, come on. But yeah, I don't know. It's one of those films that is just kind of there, and like don't watch it more than 3 times. Same goes for Eternals.
Incredible Hulk or 2003 Hulk? Which one's better?
2003 Hulk I saw when I was like 6, so yeah. I'd have to rewatch that one, but Incredible Hulk.
Now. Based on what you remember and what you
Based
think
on what
is Incredible Hulk.
Based on what I remember, I don't know, the Incredible Hulk. It's a film that I can't. Every time that I've even like attempted to rewatch it, like I forced myself to rewatch it because I had to review it that one time, but like after that, it's like every time I try to rewatch it, I always turn it off. And I bought it on Google Play, so like I so it's not like it's a 30-day rental. It's like I own this movie. Like, I gotta rewatch this thing again.
2003 Hulk, the gem.
I mean, yeah, it had a pretty good director, Ang Lee, who also directed Gemini Man, and like, which I enjoyed. But yeah, I don't know. Incredible Hulk. It's in my opinion, it will always be the worst Marvel film. Like for me, like it goes like Incredible Hulk, worst. Eternal, second worst. Thor,
Yo.
You're
We're not
wrong.
doing the
You're
Eternals
wrong.
thing.
Wrong.
We're not doing the Eternals thing on here.
I might have might have conjured up some demonic spirits.
I would like a movie night with our Discord and watch Eternals.
Please, no,
Yes.
please,
I love that.
no,
I would go
don't,
for the
do not
entire
subject
book.
us to this mental torture. The rage quit moment for me, you see, I saw it in theaters
You're
opening
wrong.
night, and I don't do well with late night movies, so I kept going in and out. I watched it like twice since I tried watching it on an airplane once, fell asleep. You see, the thing is, like with Eternals, there was the voice cameo at the end of Mahershala Ali as Blade. Coming out of the theater, I thought that was Jeffrey Wright as Uatu the Watcher initially. That was the initial thought. I'm like, okay, this is going to play into season 2 of What If, maybe. And, I am excited to see Mahershala Ali as Blade, and we could possibly get
If that ever comes out.
And if it's ever done well, because it sounds like it's not.
No. We don't talk about Blade Trinity. But yeah, I think I like that Marvel is tapping into more horror elements. I don't know if any of you guys saw Werewolf by Night, like introducing the Bloodstone and introducing Man-Thing, and so I'm glad that they're dabbling into that genre, which they've never done before. Like I literally just rewatched Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which for me, I still rank it as number 4 in Phase 4. Like for me, like my Phase 4 rankings, it goes like No Way Home, Shang-Chi, Wakanda Forever, Multiverse of Madness, Thor: Love and Thunder, Black Widow, Eternals.
Wakanda Forever is criminally too low, but okay.
Too low. Okay, now I'll admit, initially, if you watch my initial reaction that I posted on TikTok and also on my Instagram, and I saw it November 10th. I saw it like before everyone else. I had said that it was the best film in Phase 4, but I don't know. I just feel like it doesn't. It's one of those movies
the best movie of the year. It can't be the worst, or not the best in Phase 4.
I don't know. Maybe it was one of the better movies of the year, but it's a movie that was good for what it was. And it was I think it was good for what it was, and I'm probably gonna lose my blurred card one of these days, but it didn't pack as much punch, I think, as the first one. Like I remember seeing like the first one in theaters, and like the first one, the whole themes of like loss and just Killmonger as a character. He's just one of my favorite MCU villains. Like, he's got justifiable motives, and I just like it when Marvel's not afraid to get their hands dirty. They're not afraid to like connect the movies to the real world, and that's why we're so invested in these characters to begin with. And Stan Lee, he made a conscious effort to make his characters more relatable. That's what separates Marvel from DC, in my opinion. And I just think that with Wakanda Forever, they dealt with a lot behind the scenes, everything from COVID to the passing of Chadwick Boseman, and then having to continue the story and expand the universe and introducing us to not legally Atlantis, it's Talokan and Namor, or Namor as he is referred to in the comics. So I think it's a good film. I'm not saying it's a bad film. It's just not the best in Phase 4, and it just wasn't as impactful as like No Way Home or Shang-Chi, like
or Eternals.
Eternals is like, I don't even know if I can even like think about all the Phase 4 movies right now. But
about to get kicked off this server.
Yeah, I respect everyone's opinion. I never I might jokingly cut you off or something, but
Right.
I mean, it is what it is. I do really, really love Eternals. I think I have an 11 on my MCU rankings, and I don't get the disconnect. I don't get it. So many people hate it, and I know I'm in the minority, so it's like
it's
I
15
can't
on mine.
Okay, that's not bad.
I still haven't done my ranking. I was gonna do like a full tier list, like ranking all the films. Like now that Phase 4 is over, do like which films are S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, D tier, and then also doing like a list, like ranking them all, like most favorite to
Use
least favorite.
Letterboxd.
Do I follow you on Letterboxd?
I don't know. Do you? Because if you don't, you should.
I'm going to, and then you should follow me back.
I will have to look into that.
Letterboxd is literally the best app I've ever.
It is. It's my favorite app. What's your name? Khalil what? Or is it something else?
_Deadpool.
Khalil _
Old social media handle before I made it better.
You guys excited for Deadpool 3?
Hell yeah.
Oh yeah. Deadpool kills the Fox Marvel universe. I'm so down. I've decided that's what it's gonna be, and no one can convince me otherwise.
I don't know. I mean, I think that whole Deadpool 3 trailer came out of nowhere. Actually, it was Lee on Lights Camera Rant who had posted about it on his Instagram. Then I had to go check it out. I'm like, oh, Deadpool 3, this is real. And then Hugh Jackman shows up. I'm like, oh, they're bringing him back.
Yeah, I follow you.
Okay. Because I saw Deadpool 2. I only saw it once. I saw it like the day after my high school graduation, and honestly, I wasn't too big on it. I think the first one, again, it's like the first one was just so and I think Deadpool lives in like a parallel kind of like parody universe where he's just like taking shots at like the MCU and like superhero movies in general, and like and then it's like Deadpool 2 is just like an example of like too much of a good thing, or it fell into like a lot of those tropes that sequels fall into. It's like okay, like the sequel's usually not as good as the original, or and then there's that scene where like all these characters just die, and like none of us were expecting that. But
not having a director. That's what the problem was, because Ryan Reynolds can't direct movies.
Oh wait, did he direct the?
No, he didn't. Technically, he didn't. But like, if you hear any stories of what happened behind the scenes, they fired the initial the director of one, and brought in someone who would basically just hire someone, the John Wick guy, who would just follow everything
David Leitch.
Ryan Reynolds wanted to do, and gave him all the power and really no control. So that's why it was bad.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then again, it's like also like Hugh Jackman's gonna be getting back into shape for Wolverine. A third.
He's already in shape.
Deadpool 3, yeah.
Compared to me, yeah. I got a question for you guys. Do you guys have a favorite movie of 2022 outside of MCU stuff?
Marvel?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. Do you want me to say it?
Outside of the MCU?
Glass Onion, easily.
Okay, I haven't seen it yet, so
don't
say a word. But I'm very excited, and that could
the movie.
Yeah. My favorite. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's called RRR.
Haven't seen it.
Speaking
No.
of 3 hour movies that are incredible, um, it's a Hindi film and it is absolutely incredible. It's emotional, it's funny, it's silly, it's has action, it has everything you possibly want in a movie. It's outlandish, it's just incredible.
It's 3 hours. I'm never gonna watch it.
Just go watch the dance sequence. Just look up RRR dance scene.
Okay, I
it's
can do
okay.
that. As long as it's not 3 hours, I'm good.
I guess for me it'd be a Bullet Train.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Here's I fell asleep in Bullet. I went to see the movie and I woke up to be fair, it wasn't the movie's fault. I was it was a late showing and I was very tired, but I was woken up by the cleaners. I don't know
by the cleaners. Wow.
Yeah, not even like the employees. It was like the people that come in after, like the theater's closed.
I saw it in theaters twice. The first time, I feel like I was kind of distracted because I was with my girlfriend at the time. So it's like, and I did do a non-spoiler review like after I had initially seen it in theaters, and it's funny because it's like I realized like I'm seeing like in the film, and you realize that it's directed by David Leitch, who also directed like Deadpool and John Wick, and so it's like I feel like I'm watching like John Wick, Deadpool, and like Kill Bill all at once, and I'm thinking like, how did Quentin Tarantino not at least like write the screenplay or direct the film? Because like you have like these characters, they're having like Lemon and Tangerine, they're just like sitting there having regular conversations, and like was it Tangerine who had like the stickers from like Thomas and Friends, like they're just having all these like regular conversations, and there's all this like crazy shit going on. There's like a whole like Yakuza deal going on. And then like how Brad Pitt's character just phenomenal. Yeah, I think that for me, of the films that I did see in theaters outside of the MCU this year, that one was definitely one of the better ones. One movie that I have to go back and rewatch is the Batman, which I also saw with my girlfriend, and yeah, that movie, like it was interesting. It was darker. It was I think people kept clowning Robert Pattinson because he's like, oh, Edward from Twilight's playing Batman. I think he did a phenomenal job, with him and Andy Serkis. I was really like, there was a rumor that I heard that Robert Pattinson was going to play Batman, and then Jonah Hill was going to play the Penguin, but then Jonah Hill lost like 100 pounds, so then that didn't happen. I think the actor who they put in a fat suit, the guy from the New World movie, I can't think of his name. He was on Hot Ones. They put him into a fat suit for the Penguin. I think he did pretty well. It almost like reminded me of like a crime noir film that I have HBO Max. Like I have to go back and rewatch the film now. I think there's a lot of films where you have like the star power in front of the camera, and then you figure like, oh, the movie's gonna write itself. And I talk about this in my review of Black Adam. How you have like star power in front of the camera, and then you think the movie's gonna write itself, and then it doesn't. And like the two examples I used were The Interview and The Hateful Eight, and how in The Interview, in the case of The Interview, it was overshadowed by the controversy of North Korea hacking into Sony, but you have the comedy duo of James Franco and Seth Rogen, who I think are really phenomenal actors, really phenomenal writers. It's like they figure it's like, oh, we got those two guys from This Is the End and Pineapple Express. They're coming together again. It's like, oh yeah, the movie's just gonna write itself. And then you actually watch the movie, and then it sucked. Like I did not like the Interview like at all. And then with The Hateful Eight, now I'm a diehard Tarantino fan, and like that film,
you're wrong.
That film, okay, comic boys. It's like with The Hateful Eight, I won't go so far as to say it's Tarantino's worst film. I think it's his second worst, only to Death Proof. And I think with The Hateful Eight, it's like, okay, so you have Samuel L. Jackson, you have all these actors that you've used before. Samuel L. Jackson's been in 6 of his films. He's been in like 2/3 of this man's filmography. So you have all this star power in front of the screen, and you have like a solid script, because you got to understand, Quentin Tarantino, he's a writer-director. So he had a solid dialogue where it's like you're invested in where the story is going. So like you're on the edge of your seat as like where the story's going, where it's headed. But then it's like all build up and then just like zero payoff. It's like all build up, and then it's like, oh yeah, Channing Tatum's in this movie. Roll the credits. Pretty much.
Hmm.
Like, oh yeah,
So-
it's like, oh yeah, Channing Tatum's in this movie. Roll the credits.
I disagree with you on so many of the points you just made. Oh, where
Oh,
to
no.
start? Okay,
Oh, here we go.
let's start back. Wait, so first of
Oh.
all, were you talking about Colin Farrell when you were talking about the person who played Penguin? You were talking about Colin Farrell.
Yes,
right?
yes. Colin
And-
Farrell. Yes, Colin.
And
Farrell.
the movies that you'd recognize him from, you didn't even go to like anything he's like any big thing he's done. Okay.
Yes, The New World, and I kind of fell asleep. And as I'm watching the movie Avatar, like it kind of reminds me of The New World. I'm like, okay, so you have so you have these outsiders who like come and they find this exotic land, and then they want to like take it over, and they want to like enslave half the population. And I'm thinking like, is Avatar a movie about like the colonization of North America or of Africa or like? but yeah, I mean back to Colin Farrell, like that's like the one film that I had watched after I saw the Batman. I just rented that movie from my university library, and I'm like, oh, that's the guy for that. Oh, that's Colin Farrell. That's the guy from.
Have you not seen
from Batman.
Daredevil? Like the movie?
Was it
Ben Affleck?
the 2003 Daredevil?
Yeah.
Like one time.
Oh, he's bullseye in that.
He's in that?
And also, he's done like 500 other things in his career. He's in Fantastic Beasts as well. I know you haven't seen that one, but like
No, I haven't.
he's in like a ton of movies and is. Anyways, not the point. I'm not gonna get hung up on.
He was in Daredevil? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, well, what is it that you disagree with?
So
Clear.
I mean, it's funny that you use that as the movie for Colin Farrell. Anyways, not the point. So the other things. Hateful Eight is the best Quentin Tarantino movie. Okay.
Canceled.
It is one of
Be
the
canceled.
best
Canceled. Nope. Be canceled.
whodunit mystery
Michael?
movies
Michael?
ever.
Cut this man's
It's not the best,
And-
but I'll hear him
microphone.
out.
Cut this man's microphone off.
Actually, I don't think I put it as the best. It might be like it's
Right.
top 3 though.
You should go on Two
you were
Bears, One Cave.
very
I don't hate it at all. I really like the movie, but I like a lot of Tarantino's films. So
Pulp
Oh,
Fiction.
man.
Pulp Fiction's a classic, though. Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
For me, it's between Pulp Fiction and Inglourious Bastards. Just because Inglourious Bastards was the first Tarantino film I saw.
I don't even know that I could rank them. I love Kill Bill 1. I love
Kill Bill 2 is not as good.
I love Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah, my top 8 are all like yes,
Okay.
Reservoir Dogs, Hateful Eight, Inglourious Bastards are my top 3.
Okay, all right. I mean, Inglourious Bastards is number 3. That I
Death Proof is just so far down as the 10th one.
I was
or
Stuntman Mike
20th
for Halloween.
And then Django and Kill Bill kind of at the bottom there.
Why is Django at the bottom?
And then
Why do you put Django at the bottom?
you have to rank the movies. You have to rank the movies.
Why is Jamie Foxx at the bottom though? Like,
I don't like Jamie Foxx as an actor.
what?
honest. Yeah.
That movie was amazing. That movie was awesome. Quentin Tarantino
Always you have
gets
to
blown
rank
up.
them.
He gets blown up by dynamite. That's the thing. Like he puts
And-
himself in his films a lot, I think, as well. Like,
Yeah, so do most. Like M Night does it.
I
But-
guess. Yeah.
And then Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is 4. And anyways, Jackie Brown, underrated movie.
Oh yeah.
And-
Jackie Brown definitely. Yeah.
The other movie, which I think is a very good example of putting two people on a screen and expecting it to write itself, is Men in Black, the new one. Let's
I
throw Chris Hemsworth and
made a
um,
conscious effort not to see it in theaters.
have you seen it in
Like-
general?
No, because the third one just left such a bad taste in my mouth. You see, like the first two Men in Black movies. Okay, again, Khalil, calm down. All right, calm down. All right, my turn now. It's like the first two Men in Black movies were actually pretty solid. The first one is before my time, and I still think that Will Smith is a very talented actor. Recent controversy aside, and yeah, I think it was early in Will Smith's career, and I just remember watching like the first one on VHS. Will Smith, Tommy Lee Jones. They were kind of a dynamic duo, the two of them. I like the first one will always be my favorite. Second one was good too. They brought in Zaria Dawson, and they kind of. I think I've driven past the post office that they used in Men in Black 2. Like I've actually like been to that area in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, I think. So the third one was like I kept falling asleep, and I think it's an example of when you try to bring back a franchise after like 10 years. And I mean, because by then it's like Will Smith, he's like in his 40s now, and I just feel like a lot of the jokes just didn't hit the same. And the way that they kind of replaced Tommy Lee Jones with Josh Brolin, who I also think is a great actor. Like no shade to any of the actors. I just think that from a writing standpoint, from like a directorial standpoint, like the movie, it just didn't work for me. Like when I saw it when I was 11, and like years later as I've rewatched it, it just doesn't hold up to the first two. And I was really hoping that they would just let the franchise just die there. It's like, there's usually like in a lot of trilogies, there's always like that one film that just kind of kills it. It's like Men in Black 3, Blade Trinity. It's like, there's like that third film that just kind of, we just gonna take our chips, exit the casino. We about to scrap out. And yeah, I mean, for like Men in Black International, I'm like, huh? That's what we're doing?
Yeah,
like, we just like we're just getting rid of the original cast. What?
Yeah. That was a movie where they saw Ragnarok and said, "Hey, can we do that? But like in our movie, except we're not going to write a script for them." And so what happened was, as you can expect, because Sony, like continuing to use that kind of analogy that you made, they don't understand what cashing their chips out before they lose and go into severe debt means. So what they did was what they would normally do, which is continue to think, okay, eventually, our luck is going to turn around, even though we keep losing. And well, they lost again. It was a disaster of a movie. I hated it. As someone who loves Men in Black, like as a top tier movie franchise or trilogy, that was an awful movie.
I don't have any opinions on this. I saw it in theaters. I have no memory of it. I like the first Men in Black. Don't remember the second one, and definitely don't remember the third one. Although I remember the third one being ass.
Yeah.
Third one was fine. It wasn't great. It's like Godfather 3.
I also haven't seen that one. I kind of like mentioned that when I was on the Lights Camera Rant podcast. Fingers crossed he will join us. But yeah, I haven't. Well, I had said how like, although I haven't seen Godfather 3, it's like every time you think you've come out and then you're back in. I think we were talking about Hawkeye and how Hawkeye's a character who just can never retire. It's like he's attempted to just leave the superhero life behind multiple times. Like he voluntarily retired after Infinity War, and then Civil War happened. He was forced back into retirement, and then he lost his family and became the Ronin, and then he's got to save the world. And it's like he just wants to enjoy Christmas time with his family. And then the tracksuits was just no. Then this is like the fourth time that he's trying to retire. It's like, okay, Godfather Part 3. Like, come on.
Okay, I have a question. Are we going to just ignore the fact the entire DC universe has died if we haven't mentioned it once?
Who cares? No offense to them.
Michael? We could just continue this conversation with just the two of us. Like, we don't have to. It's like, who's this?
Yeah, I can do this.
Who's this? No. Don't actually.
Michael trying to exile me.
No, don't exile him. Okay, no.
I won't. You can stay for now.
It's a democracy, not a dictatorship.
Now, if you want to know my thoughts on DC, I have a podcast coming out on Monday, where I just basically rant about DC for an hour, including giving my own personalized slate for their future.
Okay, yeah. Well, maybe I'll
there you
just
go. I just need to find a way to get that plug in there.
Maybe what I'll do is I'll just like listen to your episode, and then I'll do an episode on my podcast where I specifically respond to Comic Boys podcast. Where do I agree? Where do I disagree?
And I'll respond to your response.
And we'll literally call it Comic Boys Podcast Diss Track Episode 1.
Oh damn!
And I will respond to your response on my podcast.
Talk about Eternals is the best Marvel movie ever. Boy, if you don't get it. No. But yeah, but honestly, I when I talked about when I did my review of Black Adam, which I saw in theaters, I saw it in IMAX. I thought it was a pretty good film. Okay, I think the acting was solid. Pierce Brosnan. I think again the acting was solid. Pierce Brosnan, Hawkman. The banter was good. The I think it was nice for us to finally see Black Adam, because Black Adam was teased in the movie Shazam. Like they teased him in Shazam, and I think initially he was supposed to show up in Shazam. And you find out that this is a movie that The Rock has been trying to make since like 2008 too.
Mhm.
So it's like,
Mhm.
I definitely think that. And then, I mean, come on, that post-credit scene with Superman, and I talked about how maybe we'll see a philosophical, like an ideology debate between Superman and Black Adam, because through the, I guess, Zack Snyder trilogy, well, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, especially in Batman v Superman, and then Zack Snyder's Justice League, like we see how Kal-El realizes that, like, he's kind of figuring out his place in the world, kind of similar to what John Watts did with the Spider-Man Home trilogy, and how Superman's just kind of finding his place in the world, and he's kind of determining, it's like, do I need, like, when is it okay for me to intervene? Do I really need to intervene? And then he comes to the conclusion that he literally has the power to end all wars between man. Like, all he has to do is pick a side in like any like foreign conflict. Like, he really doesn't need to answer to anyone or like bow to any government, not even the United Nations. Like, he has the power for like the entire world to start over and put himself on top. He recognizes that he has that ability, but he doesn't want to exercise that ability. He just wants to live amongst humanity and, live in peace and intervene only when it's absolutely necessary. Black Adam doesn't have that same moral compass, but I'm also glad that they retconned him from his original origins back in like the 1930s. He wasn't even a property of Detective Comics. It was a separate comic book company that was then bought out by DC, which was Action Comics at the time. And Black Adam only showed up once, and he was a Shazam villain. And in recent years, he's been reimagined as an anti-hero. And I think that we all need to revisit the movie of not only the movie of Black Adam, but also the comic book origin. And we see how he's a bit of an anti-hero, my way or the highway. It's like, but he doesn't have the same moral compass that Superman has, even though he's a being who can't even call him a superhero. Like, he's an anti-hero who's on par, who can actually go toe-to-toe with the likes of Shazam, with the likes of Superman. So with the upcoming Shazam Fury of the Gods, I'm interested to see, will there be a Black Adam Shazam face-off? Will they face off? Will they team up? Will there be a philosophical debate over when is it okay for an enhanced individual to inflict his will wherever he wants? Like, they'll say that same debate that we saw in Batman v Superman, and to some extent in Captain America Civil War. It's like, when is it okay for especially just one person? Like, when is it okay for one enhanced individual to just inflict his will wherever he wants, kind of thing. So I'm looking forward to the philosophical debates between Superman and Black Adam and even Shazam. So I think in that regard,
Okay.
DC is making a comeback.
I'll give it to you here. I'm sure you made a very amazing defense of Black Adam. Now, I had to leave because I couldn't listen to such blasphemy being spoken by someone
Oh my god.
who claims to like movies or be like, an avid fan of movies or superheroes or really anything. So I couldn't listen to it, unfortunately, because sanity sakes and all that. But I'm sure you made a very great defense of one of the worst movies ever made. One of the worst superhero movies ever made.
The Room?
No, superhero movies. Black Adam. Black Adam is
I haven't seen it.
It is a disaster. It is one of the. It's easily one of the worst movies of the year. It's worse than Jurassic World Dominion.
Oh, wow.
Although I will say, you're making a really valid point for me to want to go see the movie now, Khalil. Because if you hate it, that means I might like it.
It's bad. It's like there are people I know who are DC fans who didn't like it, and like hardcore DC fans who defend any garbage that studio puts out, and they put out a lot of garbage. So that's how bad it is. On top of that, I think The Rock is a very annoying, personality online, and I think he's one of the most annoying people online in general. In his online.
You're not talking about that whole what's his face? He was in Journey to the Center of the Earth, and he was in The Mummy, and he recently got overweight. And
Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, Brendan Fraser. You probably talking about that whole Brendan Fraser.
Canadian legend Brendan Fraser.
I forgot. Oh, I forgot. He's
legend.
Canadian. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, no.
dissing
You
Canadian.
probably talking about that Bernard Fraser, and I will have you know that The Rock's father is also
The Rock
Canadian.
can't act, by the way. I don't care. We don't own him. We
Cubs,
disown
Mike.
him.
Cubs, Mike.
The Black Adam or The Rock can't act. First of all, we have to get this out of the way. We got to stop acting like he is an actor. He isn't. He's never been able to act. The only time he's good is in comedies. Now, Black Adam is very void of one aspect. The only thing The Rock is good at, which is being funny and well-written comedy, obviously. Hence why Central Intelligence is his best movie, right? Very low bar, but still. The Rock can't act. They dragged a bunch of people with no character. Half the people in that movie, had no personality. I didn't care about half the people in that movie. Half
think Hawkman
the
was pretty
Justice Society literally had no purpose to being there. The two, the wind person and the big person,
Cyclone?
they rip off Ant-Man and rip off
You can't even remember their
Red
names.
right because they didn't exist in the movie. They basically showed up for
Oh my
5
goodness.
minutes in total. They had 3 lines, and we're supposed to care about them
We're
for some
expanding
reason.
the universe, okay? And if you really were a DC fan, then you would know that the
I'm not a
Justice
DC fan. I
Society
just gotta-
of America,
like-
okay, if you had actually, sorry, I just dropped the Dave Buster's coin. If you had actually, okay, yeah, no, you see now, if you had actually, you would actually deserve to wear that shirt if you had actually like gone and read the DC comics, and you would find out that the Justice Society of America in the comics, they predate the Justice League. And I actually talked about this in my podcast. You know, okay, the real DC fans would know that the Justice Society, they predate the Justice League.
That's not my problem. I don't care what they're called.
Group,
I'm
they
good
were
at
a
that.
smaller federation. All right. So
This is about movies, though. I read the
Hawkman.
comics. I'm talking about how they don't develop these characters at all. They don't develop those two.
It's not their
specifically.
movie.
Okay,
The movie's about Black Adam. It's the origin story. The origin story is going to be a little shaky, okay?
Characters, just because they're in the movie, they're supposed to be side characters in the movie. You still have to develop them. You can't just have them exist and say 3 things and expect people to like say this is a good movie, right? You have to give some weight to everyone who you want to. They acted like they were part of like the bad guy group, but like you can't just not develop them.
Okay,
And
well,
on top
look,
of that, okay,
it's like, you know, I always say that you have to get that origin story out of the way and just kind of, you know, tear off the Band-Aid. And once you have that origin story, you have that strong foundation, and then you build from there. Like, even if you look at Marvel movies, I mean, like, take, for instance, the movie Thor. Like, it's Thor's origin story. I mean, why are Lady Sif and the Warriors 3 even there? They barely have any lines. I mean, one of them was recast. It's like, and then they just get killed off in Thor Ragnarok. Okay, they're kind of side characters who don't really add that much to the story. And the Justice Society, I mean, the movie's not called Justice Society. It's called Black Adam for a reason. Like, it's a movie about Black Adam. It's his origin story. And he was teased in Shazam. So really, they're just kind of teasing future projects, and that's something that that's something. Okay, all right, no, let me finish. Okay, that is something that I think Marvel has perhaps spent too much time. They don't know when to focus on one story, and that's the problem I have with Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. They didn't know how to focus on just one story at a time. They spent way too much time setting up Thunderbolt, setting up Ironheart, a bunch of movies that had nothing to do with the original, with the official plot, But then in a lot of DC films, they are better at planting seeds for future projects while also focusing on the film at hand. All
Can I ask a question?
What the hell are you talking about?
Hey, all right, let's. This is. I have to. This is getting heated. Okay, of all movies, Black Adam is bringing it out of
Wait,
you
hold on.
guys.
I need to respond to this stuff.
Very quickly, because I have a very important question.
I think
Preposterous claims being made. You act like DC is ever going to finish any of these because now we know for sure these are all dead in the water. James Gunn is not going to let someone who's been trying to monopolize DC continue to exist in his universe. But on top of that, every time they tease something, they never follow through on it. They teased the in Justice League, what's his face, the Deathstroke, and they never followed through on it. They
I was in the
teased
Justice
Lex
League. We
Luthor
don't
return.
we don't observe the Justice League. Okay, we observe the Zack Snyder's Justice League. Okay, yes, it's 4 hours long, and yes, they tease Martian Manhunter. Okay, you see, they're
They don't
setting
follow
up
through on those
future
either.
projects. Okay, they haven't come out yet. They're still okay.
They're never coming out.
It's
Never.
in development. Okay,
No, they aren't. James Gunn's never letting any of that come out.
Very important question here.
Very
Okay,
important question. All right.
is Black Adam a Shazam? Yes or no?
No.
What?
What? No.
Repeat the question.
Let me ask you this. So Shazam, from what I know of Shazam, he's a little kid and he turns into a superhero, right?
Yeah.
So is Black Adam like just a weak little man until he becomes Black Adam
In the comics, or
in the
like
movie?
in the movie, I can't
Sort
say
of.
the answer is not spoiling it.
I don't care if you spoil Black Adam for me.
Okay, spoiler alert. It's not really the kid, it's the dad.
Yeah.
Who's dad? What dad?
Black Adam. So the kid Black Adam gives his powers to his dad because he wants to protect him, and his dad then becomes evil, basically.
Yeah, but then
That's, like,
we don't find
strong.
that out until like the third act, and there's a lot of like back and forth.
You have a pretty
Like,
good hunch the entire time.
It's not like Black Panther where there's one flashback sequence in the start of the film, and then we fast forward to like the present, and then we go back to that same scene, and there's more exposition. It's not like that just one time. They do that like a few times throughout the like at least once in each act. Like it's in the first act, and then again in the second act, like when we found out what we found out at that point, and then like one last time in the third act, so we get the full like backstory periodically throughout the film. Which I
Oh, wait,
don't
that's
think-
the other thing. They shoved another villain into Black Adam at the end just for fun. So that was also a waste of like time and screenplay.
Superman.
No,
So-
the random demon dude at the end of the movie.
Random demon dude.
You know when he breaks out of prison and then they all team up and then Hawkman puts on Dr. Fate's helmet or whatever, even though that's not supposed to be possible, and does all the magic stuff. Do you not remember this? Did you like forget the second half of the movie?
When it shows up on HBO Max, I will be doing an in-depth spoiler review. So yes, I will definitely acknowledge the demon dude, and I will even maybe
Do you not remember this?
I will probably shout out comic boys and say, now look, I know, like before I even started this episode, comic boys is probably going to disagree with everything I'm about to say, but let's.
And
go to
I
comic
promise you, when you release that in-depth review, I will respond to it.
Yes, and that's why it's the Cops Corner podcast, and
Yeah,
sound like Steve,
you're wrong in so many ways about Black Adam, but it's okay. We're allowed to be
Sound
wrong
like-
sometimes.
sound like Stephen A. Smith.
But you're a basketball fan, it seems, so I'm okay with that. I
Right.
think. Are you a basketball fan or
guess.
football fan? I don't know.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you guys get because Khalil, you're in Canada, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys get the NFL up there or not, but
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do.
my father is he's a diehard Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and so I live in the house, so I just kind of watch my sports like through them. My brother's the baseball fan. We're more of a Steelers household. I haven't been watching the World Cup like at all.
I don't want soccer's boring.
Yeah, Brazil got eliminated recently, unfortunately. But
I literally watched 0 seconds. Even Canada, I didn't watch any of it, even though they got destroyed. I know that.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I like basketball. I like football. That's it. That's the sports.
I
And then-
don't really. I think sports are boring. I watch football sometimes, but I mean, it's like it's kind of rare for like there to be a really exciting game.
the only football game I watch every year is the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I do like watching the Super Bowl. Yeah,
But this year I only got to watch the first half because, and again, I say girlfriend at the time, stole my laptop because, again, this is what happens when you have HBO Max. And the episode.
No
there's a
HBO
new
Max in Canada.
There was a new episode of Euphoria that dropped on HBO Max like at 9:00. So I only got to watch up to the halftime show. I'm like, no, I want to watch the rest.
I just watched Euphoria after the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
Euphoria is awesome, by the way.
it is amazing. She got me into it.
It's a good
It's funny
show.
because
It's a really
funny
good
'cause, like she got me because in preparation for season 2, like we watched season 1, and then we were watching season 2 together, like in real time, and then I had gotten her into Stranger Things.
Ew.
Watched all 3. Again, Michael, it's like we can just put him in the bathroom. Like you guys ever see A Bronx Tale?
No.
Oh man, missing out. Chaz Palminteri, Robert De Niro, Terrell Hicks, classic. But there's a scene where they're like playing. I don't know if they were like shooting dice in like the basement somewhere, and then there's this one character who just like they swear has bad looks. Like, oh, it's like put him in the bathroom. I don't want him watching this dice roll. It's like, okay, it's like comic boys, you over here talking about like saying ill to Stranger Things. Like, just
What's wrong with Stranger Things? I mean, like there's like not so great parts, but there's also really incredible parts. Like I think one of the greatest moments. Okay.
How do you watch Stranger Things?
I don't even know. I don't know.
I just don't like the idea of it.
I never played like Dungeons and Dragons or nothing like that. Probably played it one time.
I played it a couple times.
Yeah,
Mike Hose is a big D&D guy, so
yeah, I just liked it for the sci-fi and like fantasy aspect of it. And I don't know, I think it's a show that it's just one of those shows. I mean, it's a bit of nostalgia. I mean, granted, I wasn't alive in the 80s, but like I guess the nostalgia of like life before the internet and like what did kids do for fun, and it's like people used to like actually like going to the mall was like a typical Saturday, like for most teenagers. I mean, looking back, and maybe it's because I went to an engineering school and I didn't have time to hang out on the weekends, but like I went to the mall probably twice throughout high school.
What kind of engineering?
Mechanical engineering. I'm going for mechanical engineering now. University of Bridgeport. That's sweatshirt. Nice. I'm actually in my dorm right now.
That's a very nice dorm. I don't know how you got.
That's a very nice dorm. That's the nicest dorm I've ever seen in my life.
And it's funny because the building, not RA, but like one of the other like people who works in the building said like we're supposed to be on 24-hour quiet hours because like final exams are next week. For some reason, whoever's in the room next to me, every Sunday night they just feel the need to blast music. I'm like, I get that my Monday class isn't until 4 p.m., but like, guys, come on. We're out here trying to sleep. but yeah, I guess like with Stranger Things, like for me, I get like sort of a window into like what it was like for like when my parents were in high school in like the 80s, and like what was life like for them, and like AV Club and the Cold War, and I don't know, like it's just an all around good show. Like I feel like there's something for everyone when it comes to Stranger Things. I think also even with the MCU, it's like, you know, there's like a ton of movies, and I said it once, I'll say it again, said a million times, I'll say it a million more. Superhero films are not a genre unto themselves. Like Captain America: The First Avenger is like a 1940s period piece. Captain America: The Winter Soldier, it's a political thriller. Guardians of the Galaxy, space opera. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, low-key a horror film. You know, all these films have their own, and maybe it's because you have one studio, but all these films have like so many different directors. So it's like each film has its own like direction, its own style, its own flavor, and yet they're all fall under that umbrella of superhero films. Ant-Man and the Wasp, heist film, non-traditional heist film, I guess you could say. But yeah, it's like each film has its own like style and flavor, and with the MCU, and I feel like also, you know, Khalil, despite what you may think about the DC EU, I feel like there's something for everyone. There's something to be enjoyed by everyone in the MCU and in the DCEU. Like there's, you know, certain because again, like the superhero movies, it's not its own genre. And like each film is different. And although I'm not the biggest fan of Eternals, but I think Michael, like when you had brought up on the Discord, I can't remember, like, was it you who had like a whole paragraph
I
of
wrote
like
a paragraph.
yeah, it's like you're the one who like wrote that whole paragraph about like how Eternals, it's the movie for like, it's like the non-traditional superhero film, and like we all need to go and rewatch it. And it's like, you actually see like human connection and that sort of thing. So I can see where you're coming from with that. But yeah, I mean, it's like that there's something for everyone when it comes to the DCEU, the MCU, maybe even Star Wars, and definitely with Stranger Things as well. So I think everyone check it out.
Can you find me the thing for me in DC, please? Because I haven't found it yet. I've watched every DC.
What's your favorite TV show of this year?
Of this year? I don't know.
Because I know the right answer. I just don't know if you guys know it.
You see, I feel like all the shows I've been watching have been, I feel like all I've watched is like nothing but like Marvel shows. And I mean, I haven't finished the second season of The Witcher, but The Witcher is really good. Have any of you checked out Peacemaker on HBO?
Yes, I love it.
Nope.
Really good.
Yes, amazing.
So
amazing.
good. It's the best DC.
Yeah,
it's the best DC thing since The Dark Knight.
Okay, that's actually fair. Gosh, I don't know. Best TV show of the year? I don't have an official answer. I don't. Because I'm trying to like think even like outside of like the world of like Marvel and DC. It's like I'd have to look back through all the shows.
Wait, does Marvel count and DC count and stuff?
But I mean, it counts, but like I don't want to just like narrow my focus to just like sci-fi and.
That's fair.
I straight up only have the attention span to watch like Marvel shows and Star Wars shows. So.
What would you guys say was the best Marvel show? Like, what are your rankings for like the show, like just the shows of like Phase 4? Like, where do they rank for you guys?
She-Hulk, Ms. Marvel, and then everything else eventually later on.
Cut this man's microphone off.
Actually, yeah, that's kind of weird. That's a weird.
Cut this man's microphone off.
I did not expect that to come out of your mouth.
She-Hulk's.
I mean, I don't hate either of them. But I mean, Loki, WandaVision,
Yes.
Hawkeye. That's an easy top 3 for me.
I just rewatched Moon Knight.
Different levels, so
yeah.
Representation in film and stuff.
Oof. Thing is, like, I want to say, it's like, and I kind of want to say, like, I kind of feel like I'm contractually obligated to say Falcon and the Winter Soldier was the best, but I mean,
I don't hate it as much as
that.
most, but...
I think that show, like, there was a plot line that they were going to go somewhere with Carly Morgenthau stealing the vaccines. But what happened was they filmed that in previs, like in like Atlanta prior to the pandemic, and then we all know what happened in March 2020. So then they had to cut that plot line. So I think there's probably like an extended, like pre-COVID. Well, I don't know if we'll ever get like the pre-COVID cut of Falcon and Winter Soldier, because I feel like it's not super relevant anymore. But like they were probably had a different. There
was stuff missing for sure.
Yeah. So, but I still think that the show definitely stuck the landing. We finally get Sam Wilson, Captain America, which is exactly what happened in the comics in 2014, the exact same year that Anthony Mackie made his debut as the Falcon in Captain America: The Winter Soldier. So we see a passing of the torch, a teaser for Thunderbolts. John Walker, character we all love to hate. I mean, Wyatt Russell, amazing actor. Wyatt Russell. There's a lot of like actors and a lot of celebrities who you'll say like, oh, nepotism babies, or it's like, oh, your father was Snake Plissken, therefore you're famous. It's like, I think Wyatt Russell, he's earned his way
Oh, yeah.
in Hollywood. Like he's one of those nepotism babies that actually earned his way in Hollywood, and can't wait to see him as U.S. agent in Thunderbolts. Contessa Valentina Allegra De Fontaine has shown up periodically throughout the MCU. I put that one maybe as like 2 or 3. I feel like for me, number 1, it's maybe for me it's a tie. I feel like between Loki and What If, and the fact that we know that we're getting a season 2 for both of those shows. What If, there's no limit. They can just keep that show running forever. Like they can go anywhere, really. I mean, you know, with Uatu the Watcher, and I like how they brought everything together, like for the season finale and like the Guardians of the Multiverse. Loki planted that seed for Quantumania. You know, I'm really looking forward to Jonathan Majors as Kang the Conqueror. I think he's definitely going to be like a top tier. He's going to be the new big bad going forward, and especially now that they're bringing in Ironheart. I think in the comics there's a version of Kang that's a descendant of Riri Williams. So, you know, already looking ahead, looking forward to Avengers, Secret Wars, Avengers, Kang Dynasty, but first, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. You know, it may be my theory that the TVA exists inside the quantum realm. Maybe that will be confirmed or denied. So, but seeing like He Who Remains, you know, on the season finale, even after Jonathan Majors publicly said that he's not going to show up in Loki, and then he shows up. It's like, you know, I think that show left us on the edge of our seats. I think of the Marvel shows we've gotten so far, that's a show that has, and it's an ongoing show. Like it's, you know, we know Loki's getting a second season. Thank God. Like it's the show that left us wanting more. I feel like, and it's like I mean, Falcon and Winter Soldier. It's like, yeah, okay, so we got Thunderbolts, we got Captain America: New World Order, we got with WandaVision. It's like, okay, Agatha: Coven of Chaos. It's like each show contributed in its own unique way. Moon Knight, not sure yet. As to what it's.
Wait, I have a question for
Wait.
you. Sorry, just I'm catching up here because I had to get some tea to calm my nerves from all these hot takes that I'm getting thrown at me.
Hater.
I'm just truthful. Were you talking about What If being one of your favorite shows?
Yeah, I said it for me. It's tied between What If and Loki. Honestly,
I like What If a lot. And Khalil, I feel like there are really incredible episodes of What If. Like you might be looking at some like Party Thor might be the worst one, and it's pretty bad. But like the Doctor Strange one, even the Captain Carter one is like there's not a whole lot to it, but it's really cool. It's stellar visually.
yeah.
And like the final 3 episodes where Hawkeye and Black Widow are like the last like people alive fighting Ultron, like that is just some of the most badass stuff, like straight up. Like Marvel Zombies, are you kidding me? Like I love What If.
They are doing a Marvel Zombies
I cannot
cartoon, and it's going to be TVMA, which they've never done before. Like it's going to be TVMA. Daredevil Born Again is going to be TVMA. You know, I think that for me, my favorite like solo story was again, probably contractually obligated to say this, but the episode where it's like, what if Tony Stark survived that attack? Like, what if Killmonger like stopped the explosion? But then like with that episode, it's like, okay, so but then Tony, you know, that explosion never happens. Tony never becomes Iron Man. He never learns the valuable lessons about, you know, he never learns to like stop being a playboy and like to actually focus on and actually like putting his knowledge to good use and becoming the hero that he was meant to be. He never learns any of those lessons, so he just kind of trusts too easily. And then Killmonger ends up manipulating Tony for his own personal gain. So it's like that's an interesting like alternate universe, almost a what if. So yeah.
Can I justify this what if? Not necessarily hatred, but dislike.
Okay.
Because I am like the animated guy. I should be the animated guy. Like animated stuff always top tier for me.
Yeah. Brian already called you out on that. There, you gotta love it.
So this is my rationale. Okay, now what if going into it before it came out was my most anticipated Marvel project almost ever. Like I was so excited for it. But what I think the problem ended up being was first the it was too hard, and I think even harder than Star Wars to be able to properly, in my mind, rationalize the animation. And what I mean by that is, you look at the Clone Wars. I think they did such a good job making it easy to see Anakin and Obi-Wan and all these people as animated characters. Mainly because I don't think they tried to like recreate them. Like they
It was
were
very
okay doing like,
stylized.
I guess.
and it was also they were okay doing a new voice cast, and they were able to do all that stuff, and they were able to say, look, they're the same characters, but they're just different, right? And
Mm.
with Marvel, I think they did, because of like the mix between real actors and non-real actors, like not like live action actors and non-live action actors. I
Yeah.
think they did. I just don't think it fit in my brain where I could rationalize it and say, this is good. Like it felt too much like they were trying to be live action, but in cartoon bodies, right? But then some voices, like of the main characters, weren't the same, and some of them were the same, and some of them weren't great with the voice acting thing. Because like
Mm.
you do need to be good to be a voice actor. Like there is a level of talent which some on-screen actors aren't able to do effectively. Like something you're like, oh hey, I know you. Like Chris Pratt is Mario. Like I don't think he's doing a very good job from the very limited kind of sample size we have. Because
Yeah.
it feels too much like Chris Pratt, not enough like Mario, which maybe that's a casting thing, maybe that's a him thing, I don't know. But I just think when you try to, I guess, replicate something and you try to like, it just we don't know what they wanted to do. Like, did they want it to feel like it was these live action characters in animated body? Then on top of that, some of the stories themselves, and I agree, Marvel Zombies probably one of my favorite, or it is my favorite episode of What If. I think outside of what zombies, which I'm by the way super excited for Marvel Zombies. That's gonna be awesome.
As you should.
I don't didn't I felt like some of the stories, especially like Captain Carter, as much as I love the character, the Iron Man Killmonger one, and I think it was the Guardians of the Galaxy one. I feel like they weren't creative. They didn't feel like super creative and out there. Like, I guess story like they felt too simple, right? Like I don't know, maybe it's just me, but they all the stories felt very simple. Again, outside of Marvel Zombies, all felt very simple and like, oh, we're just gonna change a little thing here, and like it wasn't as much of like a, oh, hey, what if they? I guess what people would imagine what if is, and I can't really. I know I'm like, I don't
No, no,
know, saying words.
I
Like
completely understand what you're saying, and
it's like you look at the initial comics. I don't know if you guys have read the What If comics, but it was like those comics, and even later on when they did like, I don't remember when they did it, but they did a comic series where they basically combined characters. I don't remember which big event it was after, but they did do a series where they basically combined a bunch of characters and kind of went around with that. And like those kind of things were really, really good. But what if just couldn't capture that creativity level? I think that you would have hoped they had for this show. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but that like it's not like I don't like it. It's more like I just feel like they had so much potential that they didn't meet.
oh, okay. Well, yeah. I mean, I get what you're saying. I think that for me, what was interesting was the Doctor Strange episode, because we now have this idea of like an absolute point in time, and we saw like Strange, like every time that he had the time stone, like he kept on like trying to go back and like make it so that Christine didn't die. So like in this alternate universe, like Christine dies instead of Doctor Strange, losing control of his hands. So this idea of like an absolute point in time that can't be changed, that can't be manipulated, that's new. That's something that we didn't learn about in the Doctor Strange film. So I guess maybe my theory, and I'm kind of just spitballing at this point, like what if what if like Doctor Strange losing control of his hands, what if like that nerve damage, what if that's an absolute point? Maybe there's, I guess in the live action universe, maybe like I guess the future can't really be like predicted per se. They like the ancient one, she said like I never actually saw your future, I only saw its possibilities. So like there was a possibility that maybe instead of him going through that car crash and losing control of his hands, he lost it like some other way, or so there's that absolute, the idea of an absolute point in time that cannot be changed, that can't be like manipulated. It's like Christine Palmer is going to die one way or another, and Strange having to make peace with that. And in this alternate version, in this alternate timeline where Strange and Christine actually were together, and then he just lost his best friend, he just lost the person closest to him, and then like what that does to someone, like the great lengths that you're willing to go to in order to get the love of your life back. I think I think that was the deepest episode of What If. It's like, what would you
I have a
do?
question for you then. In that case, right? Like if you look at the action, I completely forgot the absolute point in time thing, so it's a good thing you reminded me. So if absolute point in times exist, right, in the MCU, and I know this might be getting a little bit nitpicky, but does that not, like, unless it's brought up again, does that not kind of go against what they've established with the live action, with the multiverse theory, and how they've portrayed time travel, in the sense that there is every possibility there is an alternate world where it happens? Because then if there is that absolute point in time and they don't come across, like, unless that's the only one ever, because otherwise they're going to come across, when you look at what they're going to try to do, probably come Kang dynasties, and even when you look at Endgame, right? If they don't come across another absolute point in time, does that not become one of the most weird, like one of the weirdest throwaway plot points? Like, when you're kind of looking at the way they've established these rules, because you can't tell me that's the only, like, plot point of all the things they're going to try to change and come across now, and they have tried to change and come across. Like, you can't tell me that that's not gonna, like, it has to become relevant again. I'd have to hope, otherwise it becomes weird and throwaway.
Well, I mean, I completely understand what you're saying. I mean, yeah, the idea of an absolute point in time, maybe I wouldn't go so far as to say it directly contradicts like what's already been established in the MCU thus far, like with time travel and all that.
I'm saying it could. We don't know what absolute point. Like, we don't know what qualifies as an absolute point, so we can't really say it does contradict. But I'm saying the potential, if they never bring it up again, for people to believe it's being contradicted, because you have to assume something the Avengers are going to try to do to go back in time and change, either that they did in Endgame or that they will going forward, is going to contradict that absolute point theory, because something they try to change has to be an absolute point. Like, depending on, again, how these points are created and judged. And again, it'd be nice if Loki, would explain that with the TV.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we will get an explanation in a future project. Maybe in season 2 of What If, or season 2 of Loki, and we'll get an explanation on what is an absolute point. I was on there's a YouTube channel, Screen Crush, and they did a video about how the MCU wasted the blip, like the 5 years between Infinity War and Endgame. Like, we don't really find out that much about like what was life like now that the Avengers are kind of gone or MIA. It's like, were there any other heroes that filled that void? Maybe we'll see down the line. Like, really, like with the show Hawkeye, and what I still think there is potential for them to kind of maybe not in the form of like a limited series or like a movie, but maybe like down the line, if they could dive deeper into Clint Barton and his descent into the Ronin, and like how, because we saw him lose his family, and then we just see him in Tokyo 5 years later kill the main Yakuza boss. But it's like, what about the 5 years in between? Like, what about his descent into the Ronin? We know that he crossed paths with the Tracksuit Mafia, so we saw like there was that one flashback sequence that put him on Echo's radar. So maybe in Echo, maybe in the upcoming Echo spinoff series, which was announced before Hawkeye, maybe in Echo we will see more of Clint Barton's descent into his Ronin persona. And so I think that was maybe a wasted opportunity.
So I agree with you in the sense that I think going into Hawkeye, I was completely on that side of things, saying, well, obviously this is what they should do. They should talk about Ronin. They should talk about that kind of that kind of character and what happened. Now, what they gave us was significantly better than, in my mind, what I thought the version of the show should be, where they went back because obviously Kate Bishop is a gem, and um, obviously Kingpin and all that, and Echo is obviously amazing. But I do think that's something which I wish they did explore. But now I feel like, to an extent, it's like I'm kind of tired of it, in the sense like I don't want to go back to that time anymore. Now I want to keep moving forward, and I think that's the one problem. Is I think a lot of people in general are kind of getting tired of the blip and the snap being used as and talked about in shows. And I think they stopped talking about it to an extent,
Yeah.
or tried to stop talking about it, because I think people do want to move on, and I think they want to move on, and I do think that like that idea is cool, but I think that time is like, I think when Hawkeye season 2 comes out, I think everyone will be so over that period of the MCU. It'll be very,
Yeah.
very hard for them to justify talking about it, because even Hawkeye would have probably moved on, like as a character, well beyond
Yeah,
that
yeah.
point. So it wouldn't make sense necessarily, unless you do some weird thing where you have someone like from that time come back. But I feel like, again, you've already kind of done that to an extent, and so I think, in my mind at least, that's a little, the problem is, yeah, it'd be great if they did it. I think they did kind of misuse that time, and I think maybe, the pandemic happening had something to do with that, in terms of like getting projects done and out, that they may have wanted to but got met, because everything kind of shut down during the pandemic. Maybe they're they're in a weird way, it's like that kind of 5-year period that people who got snapped away didn't see. It's kind of weird. The pandemic kind of made it so that right after that kind of end of that period, it was like there were a whole bunch of like empty time, when you look at it in the way you're watching the movies, because the
Yeah.
pandemic pushed Black Widow back so far, and we have these big gaps of time. So I do think that time's passed, unfortunately. But yeah, I agree with you mostly on that.
Right. Yeah, because even the like Phase 4 has kind of just been in reaction to the end of Phase 3. Like we're in like the multiverse saga. Like I think Phase 4 was kind of just, and it was kind of a mixed bag. Like not all the projects were interconnected, and I think also you have to kind of compare Phase 4 to like Phase 1. It's like Phase 1, you had you had like Iron Man, you had the Incredible Hulk, Iron Man's cameo at the end of Incredible Hulk like pretty much made zero sense, and then was later retconned in a Marvel one shot. And then you had Iron Man 2, the sequel that almost ruined their entire setup, and they kind of like forced integrations. Like okay, it's like Coulson goes to New Mexico, we literally point blank see Cap shield. So we had like those first 5 films, and then it all came together in the Avengers, and then they teased Thanos. So I think we're gonna see in phases 5 and 6, like as we introduce Kang, as we see maybe even with like secret invasion and with Quantum Mania, and then eventually, I guess Blade, and then Avengers, Kang Dynasty, Secret Wars. Like we're gonna see it all come together. But I do think that like the general consensus is that like Phase 4 has been a very mixed bag. There's been a lot of like one story here, one story there, and then they're not like all like interconnected, which really like it, like if you look at like the MCU when it was first starting out, like not all of those movies were really that connected. You didn't really start to see like a connection and a sequence from movie to movie really until like Phase 2, and then especially in Phase 3. So I think Phase 4 is really kind of the start of a new era. Like you had said, Khalil, we're kind of moving past the blip, but really Phase 4 is just in reaction to Phase 3. And then going forward in Phase 5, we'll see us move past that era that many of us probably going to consider the golden era of the MCU. I mean, it's like, the Phases 5 and 6, like we're going to see them move past the Thanos and the Infinity Stones and all that.
Can I make an analogy quickly, which is
So,
like to kind of like talk, like kind of add on to what you just said. And the analogy I would make is like you think about like I'm gonna use basketball in the specific instance, but it can be like every sport ever. You think building up to Infinity War was like a team building up to winning a championship. They win the championship, right? And then phase 4 is kind of that they have this mini rebuild, right? Or this rebuild, they kind of retool things. They're kind of reorienting, and it's a little bit down from what you're used to in terms of like coming off a championship, right? But it is this reorganization. It's fixing some things, adding some new pieces, setting everything up, and then you're going to go back to war. That was phase 4, mixed bag, some success, some failure, and then you're going to go back to kind of winning a championship. You're going to aim toward winning a championship with Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, and I think that's kind of the way they're kind of doing this, and I think that's why Phase 4 was such a mixed bag, is because they are kind of reorienting. They're saying, let's introduce all these new characters. Let's, introduce a new storyline, the new main plot. Because the shows also did a lot of character introductions, and which is different from the MCU early on. And also, I think the MCU early on, people talk about how it's this connected universe, even beyond Phase 1 and going really pretty far in, there isn't that much real connection between the movies. Like, they were always meant to be these standalone movies with little hints toward the other things. Like, they were never deeply connected. Like, if you go back and you watch like the Winter Soldier, like that's was considered a very connected movie, and there weren't that many connections. Like Nick Fury, Bucky, like which is a Captain America character as it is. Like, I guess outside the Avengers movies, Civil War is probably is the only other like super connected MCU movie, right? Like, I feel like the MCU in general is tries to aim to be a less connected universe, and so that you can have new people come in and watch one movie and can still enjoy the movie without like feeling like I don't know what the hell just happened, right? Like, and Infinity War is very different in that sense, where it's meant to be the culmination thing. But like the other MCU movies are literally meant to be, hey, I can not know anything about the MCU, come in and enjoy this movie to some extent because it's a good movie, right?
Yeah, but I think also maybe not so much on the connections to these films, but I think the reason why so many of us love these movies is like beyond just being invested in the characters is that these films have consequences. Is that I think we saw even before Avengers Infinity War, like we saw with, and it's funny that you brought up Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which really I think that was kind of one of the more consequential films of the Infinity Saga, because that's the film where Shield is essentially no longer a factor. Like we find out that Shield has secretly been Hydra this whole time, and Shield is no longer a factor, and
And also Bucky
and
becomes
yeah, but also but yeah, right, and then Bucky's still alive, and and then like at the start of Avengers Infinity War, they take down I guess the last of like the main Hydra cells that are operating, and then but now there's no Shield, there's no Shield oversight, there's no like Shield was the intelligence organization that created the Avengers, so now the Avengers are essentially free agents, and and then this causes them to create Ultron. They pretty much created their own Avengers level threat that could have been avoided, and like at the end of Winter Soldier, when Romanoff had leaked all the Hydra files, and then Zemo lost his family in Sokovia over an attack that did not have to happen in the first place. So then Civil War happens, but then now again, like there's no Shield, and like the world has witnessed Sokovia, and then Lagos is the final nail in the coffin. So it's like Avengers anonymity, them being free agents and just kind of going wherever they want and doing whatever. That's something that the governments of the world can no longer tolerate. And I think in total there were 300 civilian casualties. I feel like, and that's not me, that's Eric Voss rewatching all these films. Shout out to Eric Voss on New Rockstars, the YouTube channel. So like that's something that the governments of the world can no longer tolerate. And we even got some foreshadowing at the end of the first Avengers film. But yeah, then we get Civil War, and then they literally created the villain, Zemo. And it was like, now we got all this public Hydra information. So of course he's going to try and see an empire fall. And sure, I mean, the Avengers don't exist at the end of Captain America Civil War. It's like, okay, now there's literally no more Avengers. There's no united front against any possible extraterrestrial threat. And nobody wins at the end of Civil War. Like the difference between Civil War and Infinity War is like
At the end of Infinity War, Thanos actually wins. Like, really, he's the protagonist of that movie. It's his story. He did exactly what he said he was going to do, wiped out 50% of the population, and then he literally just was chilling on that farm planet. With Captain America's Civil War, it's like the Avengers are torn in two. Cap and Cap's on the run. Everybody on Team Cap is on the run. We later find out that Hawkeye and Ant-Man are put under house arrest, and the rest of the team is just kind of MIA, and they're all wanted fugitives. And pretty much the Avengers, the path that they were started on in the first Avengers film seems to be over. And Zemo still ends up in jail. So it's like nobody wins in that film. So I think like these films have consequences, and 2 years later, Infinity War rolls around. The Avengers are not together. Now, according to Lights Camera Rant, he said the only reason that the Avengers lost in Infinity War was because they didn't have Hawkeye, and they've never lost a battle when they did have Hawkeye with them. Which is not wrong.
That's
kind of silly, but I didn't want to give you all a heads up. I got to hop off in like 5 minutes. So start to wrap it up here. But yeah, Hawkeye, I don't know that makes any sense. I mean, I hear like it seems like a coincidence. So
that feels like one of those sports stats where it's like so and so team has watched this bench warmer when this bench warmer plays. Or like,
yeah,
it's like you can argue it, but like
It's
if you
like
actually watch
you're
the
not
movies, it's
wrong,
but you're also not right
either. It's like how my calculus professor would say, "You've given the wrong right answer." It's like,
isn't math? Isn't it? There's only supposed to be one answer. That's like the point of it. I don't know. I don't do math, so
yeah, don't you'll regret it.
oh yeah, no, I do. I'm arts and science for a reason, and more on the
Arts and science. Okay, yeah.
I'm just arts, so
Just art. Yeah, I realize I'm majoring in something that has literally nothing to do with engine, but nothing to do with. Well, I have a podcast that has literally nothing to do with my major.
yeah.
So do
I
I.
just took a
I have
film.
I guess that has nothing to do with my full-time job. So
Oh wow. Yeah. What's your full-time?
well, I asked if you were what engineer you were because I work for an electrical contractor and I work with a lot of electrical engineers. But I do electrical design, so I'm not quite an engineer, but
Oh, what's the name of the
same thing. Same
name of the
thing.
company?
I don't want to say on here.
Oh,
I'll tell you later. It's okay. I'll tell you later.
okay, great. I forgot where.
I'll tell you
where we're at.
privately.
Of course,
But-
yeah. But yeah, I just started. I just took a film class in high school, Intro to Film Studies, and the class was literally what I'm doing now. We would watch movies, we would write essays about them, we talk about them. I think all the movies we did were like movies that dealt with surveillance. So I think the movies we did were
24. Wait, not 24.
No. No, not Person of Interest. We started with The Conversation. Yeah, we did The Conversation. We did Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window. We did Eagle Eye with Shia LaBeouf. Her with Joaquin Phoenix. We watched the documentary Citizen 4, the Edward Snowden documentary, and then we watched the movie Snowden, with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, where they actually recreate those same scenes from Citizen 4. We watched Citizen 4, we watched Snowden. We watched Ex Machina, one episode of freaking Black Mirror. And yeah, I mean, we were just like watching movies and analyzing them. I had another class like that my freshman year of college called African American Cinema, where we'd like watch movies and talk about them and write essays. So yeah, that's what kind of got me into like filmmaking, and I've just always been a huge Marvel fan, and I'm just a huge fan of like these films and TV and media.
I want to, because if we're about to close out here, I got to say, because it ties back to the conversation we had earlier, and you mentioning like what got you into movies. I said that Reservoir Dogs was one of my favorite movies because it was the movie that made me like movies, right? It was the movie that made me realize that there were more to movies, right? And I think the big part of that for me was like it had the most, because I was very, very young. I might have been 10. All the movies I had, just very standard, traditional, happy ending, either children's movie or family movie, right? And then I see Reservoir Dogs. It kind of opens my eyes. And yeah, it did not end traditionally. And I was like, wow, movies can be a lot more than I thought they were. So I owe a lot of credit to Reservoir Dogs for caring about movies, which then got me into Marvel movies and then got me into podcasting. So yeah.
I think the movie that got me into superhero films was between seeing The Incredibles in theaters in 2004 when I was 3, and then for some reason when I was like 5 or 6, my favorite movie at that time was the 2005 Fantastic Four film. Like I just remember seeing that movie, renting that movie from Blockbuster again and again and again and again. Like that movie was just like the best film ever when I was like 5. I mean, I can barely sit through it today because the CGI and just
Okay, guys. Well, I gotta hop off, but thank you guys for joining me. We almost made it to 2 hours, very close.
Thank
Almost,
you
yeah.
for having me. By the way,
Yes,
yeah,
of course.
thanks for having us. We should totally do this again. We should totally bring in Lights Camera Rant.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Chloe, anytime I get to yell at you, it's great. So
it's always fun to yell at each other. It's always, like, fun.
Yes,
All right,
yes. Oh,
guys.
yes. And Khalil, I will definitely. You and I should definitely collab. I should definitely go on your podcast.
We
You should
should.
definitely go on-
It'll
you should
probably be
definitely
the
go
most
on
like.
Star Wars
yeah, I think we all need to do. Well, Chloe, you've been
Yeah.
on mine, but
round robin.
Yeah,
there's some missing links. All right,
Yeah, no,
guys.
if we did a collaboration, it would be the most dangerous like thing on YouTube.
Yeah.
It'd also probably be the best content like I've ever created, but you know.
Almost famous.
All right, I'm cutting
on.
this thing.